So I'm supposed to be recording this on my laptop through my Reaper program with my posh new recording equipment. And my last podcast I did actually record on that, and everything went perfectly smoothly fine. But today there is just such feedback and I cannot figure out why, and I cannot find an instruction video anyway to explain why. And I'm sure I did last time. Not working this time. So I'm recording it right here, right now, and hopefully I can separate out the audio and save that and then upload that for my podcast. So I'm going to be recording right now. This bit is going to be edited out for the podcast, so bear with me and you can see it all raw. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I give up. Anyway, so here starts the podcast, and it'll be video podcast for you. Right, so why the why? That's the question today, a big one. And what's so important about the why? I'm going to investigate that in a minute. But first, hi, I'm Cindy, your host for this episode of the Blue Garden Cottage podcast, where I share with you all the sorts of different things concerning self-reliance here on our suburban council house homestead. I hope you enjoy it. Please stick with right to the end. It's a long one. Buckle up, strap in. Just put it on to listen to while you're working. Nothing to watch, but if you're watching on video podcast, and if you're listening, oh, this bit's going to get edited out, seriously. Okay, let's go. So, why the why? What's so important about the why? If you have ever had any experience with children, either your own or if you've worked with children and they have these why questions, they come up with a simple question, you give them an answer and then they go why, then you give an answer, then they go why, and so on until you hit a brick wall and you've expended all your knowledge or your interpretation of it. And the next answer would be, just because I said so. And then they go, why? And then you tell you. But that's so precious. It's so precious for little ones when they ask why. It's that thirst for knowledge, that thirst for figuring stuff out. Sometimes it's just wanting to have a conversation and get you involved. But still, that word why is... it's a good one. It is a word that is also a question, a whole question, depending on the context in which it's asked. So that's a pretty cool one. Okay, I'm going to be going through my notes here, my show notes. I try not to, but it is what it is. I'm still so new at this and so inexperienced, but I'm learning. And that is the point. I'm learning. It was part of my big why that I come to at the end of today's podcast. So, this bit's going to get edited out. Talking about children, what is the most memorable why conversation you've had with a child? And did it have a hilarious ending, or is it one that left you thinking like it does me? Because I remember my children when they were little asking these questions and going through to that point of just because I said so, and then realizing and asking, what if I don't have the answers by the time they're teenagers? I remember feeling afraid that I can't answer their questions. For most people, well, for many people actually, there's not so much concern because most teenagers just don't bother talking to their parents about certain things. But I hope that I at least, and for my children when they were teenagers, they felt that they could talk to me, and they did ask me some questions. I'm sure that there are very many, I was a teenager once as well, that they wouldn't dare ask their parents. Okay, so yeah, so it's for some people, it's not a worry, but if they do ask, I'd like to have the answers, but I don't. You're not a parent until you're a parent, really. I mean, you do parenting, I suppose, sometimes to people around you, to siblings, but you're not a parent until you have to parent. And that's a first time experience for everybody, because the only experience we have of parenting before we can become parents or parenting people to somebody, all we have for an example is our parents. And sometimes for some people, they don't want to emulate what they learned at home. For some people, they were very fortunate. I was fortunate that I had a mum who gave me great foundations. But there are people who don't. And they don't want to copy what they remember or learn from their childhood in their parents. They want to do it differently. Or sometimes it was great, but they just want to do it differently. And we sometimes do. We want to create our own traditions, our own methods, our own way of doing things. And that's fine. So the worrying about answering the whys that come to us from our children is not as important as being able to say, okay, if I don't know the answer, can I get back to you on that, or let's investigate or check it out together. But that's not the kind of why I'm talking about today. The kind of why I'm talking about is like, here's an example. Okay, there are two different types of whys. My examples are, say, ask a question to myself in the morning: why bother with breakfast? Simple question. We could have two different why answers. The one being, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. It's 7 o'clock already, and that lettuce is looking darn delicious, right? Or there's the other one that is, I have a really important job to do today, or a project to complete, or a task to fulfill, and I need the energy to do it. It's going to be a physical long day, and I need the energy, so I better have a good breakfast. So that first one, that first response, I'm hungry, I need something to eat, that could just lead you to picking up any old thing like a cuppa and a cookie, or a nasty processed cereal that will fill you for about half an hour, and then you're hungry again, or you have a sugar crash and then you've not got the energy to do what you need to do. Or it could be the difference with as to the second response, the second why, the second reason, because that's what your why is. It's your reason or your motivation for doing something. That reason being, you have something important to do that needs to be completed in that day, and you want the energy to be able to complete it. So it will affect your choice of breakfast. That's what I'm talking about, the difference between the two different whys. The first one is a superficial choice. The second one is the more compelling one. And it's the more compelling one that will actually help to move you towards the goal. So that's what I'm talking about, the compelling whys. How many whys have you had in your lifetime? I'm sure that we all have loads of different whys. I recently explored that topic with some friends in a class, and there were some wonderful responses. But the importance of the why, right? Okay, I've had some big whys along the way. The first one that I mean, there have been whys that you go through in life, you don't even think about it. Nobody sits and thinks, what is my why for doing this? Or what is my why for this project? Normally, most people just, they feel strongly about something and they go and do something, or they find out how to do it, or it's just something we do instinctively. But then, like for me, in the last, oh my goodness, 13 years, there's more than that now, 2010, yeah, since 2010. Oh my goodness, 13 years. Yep, 13 years ago, I reached a point where I was working a twilight shift in a home and hardware store, on top of getting up really early in the morning, looking after my home, my family, all the needs that needed to be met. All our projects, our crafting, our all sorts of things that we do in our home. And we didn't live in this house, we lived in another one, the previous address. And there was still, my son was still in school, so there was still all the teenage school trips and, you know, all the things that you do for your teenage kids and programs, after school things. So I had all of that and still trying to, you know, manage home and then going to work for the evening shift, which finished at 11:30, and being the supervisor as I was at that time, I would only leave by 11:30, 11:45, and then I'd be driving home at midnight. And I started to notice that I was having my, you know, those when you're exhausted, your micro sleeps. And fortunately at that time of the night there was nobody around. So it was scary though, because even if nobody else was around, I could still end up having an accident and killing myself. And the consequences of that for my family would be horrendous. I did not want to end up dying on the road at midnight or any time of the day, especially if the next day followed on and I was transporting my family places and I was exhausted and fall asleep during the day while I'm driving. That would be even more horrendous. The consequences and the thought of possible consequences of me falling asleep while driving because of exhaustion and doing a job that didn't even pay the bills, nowhere near pay the bills, and sacrificing all that time that I really wanted to be with my children at home and be at those crossroads. It came to that point where I just thought, I can't do this anymore. Something's got to give. Something has to change. I can't. And in my mind already, there was the idea toying, because it was in the aftermath of 2008 global economic crash. Pardon me, that'll be edited out. Because of that aftermath, I wanted to change my life, there was this urgency. I felt an urgency of putting my home in order, still in progress. I felt an urgency of writing a book after all that, in what was going on, as it is now again. It just keeps going over and over again, all these situations that just get spiraled bigger and bigger and bigger. So we got the same situation now again. I wanted to write about how we manage on an extremely frugal budget, how we manage in our frugal life, what we do and some of our frugal tactics. So I decided I wanted to write. I quit my job for safety reasons, for health reasons, and I started writing. And I always thought, well, we're going to have to figure out how to manage on an even tighter budget, because there was even less money coming in then. But we would, because of my experience with frugal living and budgeting, I knew we could manage. And my self-discipline was one that I could really cut back. Okay, my kids would not love me for it. That was the price I was going to have to pay. It was either that or have me peg off driving home at night. But I did. I wrote that book and I published it through a self-publishing company. That was lesson number 1. But my why was so compelling that even failing at that, I published the book. It's up on Amazon and up with a few other suppliers, but it wasn't perfect, and it was not a good experience for me, because this company asked for money up front to publish as a fee, and then they would ask for more to promote and publish. And I'm thinking, I didn't know anything. And I said, right, that's it, enough. And I was getting continual emails, continual phone calls from America or wherever else in the world they might be redirecting the phone call through. I said, no, never ever doing that again. But I still wanted to write. So I just continued expanding my understanding, my knowledge, watched thousands of videos, did a number of classes. And I don't want this to be boring or a big travelogue, but the point is that even now, I know a lot more now than I did back then, and it's still not quite enough. But I am far further along in the journey. I've discovered a huge amount more. And even though there have been countless obstacles, roadblocks, things getting in the way of me being able to achieve my goal, it has been important to go through all of those obstacles, because it has helped to morph that original why, the big why, trying to stay alive and not leave my family in the lurch, that it has morphed into something different, more into the why for finding the type of things I could use to make money. I have discovered working online. It's become a big thing. Phones since 2010, mobile phones have grown so much into mini computers in your hand. We now have all sorts of recording equipment. There are programs, there are hosting sites for podcasts, videos. YouTube has developed. Everything has grown and grown and grown, and I have been given the time in between to develop my skills slowly with the little resources and the abilities that I have to be able to try and catch up, to set me up ready to take off, if you like. It's kind of been in launch mode for quite a while, just because I keep needing to learn how to do these things, and I keep doing that. But my big why, as it has evolved from trying to stay alive to now, the circumstances have changed, because now the urgency is freedom and fear of realizing that now in 2023 there are all sorts of things going on that does not look good. Pardon me. But the urgency to be able to become financially self-reliant and independent is more compelling now than it ever has been. And I'm more determined to find ways of being able to create an income where I don't sacrifice looking after my family or my home or my health. And I have found ways of doing that. There are so many people on YouTube, thank goodness, who share their experiences, their expertise, as they have learned how to make money online to work. And it is not a quick on anything that says you can make money for doing nothing is a lie, because everything requires work. Whatever side hustle or online passive income you make, it requires work. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, but it is different work. You can set up a system of how you do things so that it's tweakable by a few little things every time, but you still have to put in the work for a few hours a week. But that's better than 60 hours a week of doing all sorts. So there are ways, and I have discovered that there are options for me, and I've started to do a business plan. I've always had this kind of business plan thing for the homestead, and that came from that big awakening back in 2019. I've spoken to you about that before. Excuse me. This weather, that's going to be edited out. Okay. Where was I? Oh. So coming out of that need to find an income where I could still look after my home, my family, my health, I have discovered I could create on merchandise type things, whether it's t-shirts, mugs, books, pillows, artwork, whatever. I can create those things to sell on Etsy. I can create PDF files to sell on Etsy. So I create a design once, and then I can have the folders and create a number of different designs by a few tweaks, and then upload them all, so that I could have a massive shop full of items, and then figure out which sell best, filter out the worst and keep the best, and then create new ones. It's a I'll put some links in the description box below, so don't forget to check out the description box, because sometimes I remember stuff after I've edited and uploaded that I didn't put in the video, so I'll put it in the description box. But I'll put in a few links of these people that I have found that have inspired me to go down this route. Okay, so there's the merchandising, then there's the medium content and low content books on Amazon. There's my proper books that I want to write, the proper written books that I could do through a different publisher that would still send to Amazon, but not Amazon only. So I could send it through Drafted Digital, for instance, which is the one I'm going to be using first, and publish my book through them. I will have to pay a fee, but at least it'll go wide to different places like Amazon and other book depositories or sellers. So I can do that. I can also teach mini classes. I could create online courses. That's one for the future because that's a bit more in depth. And then podcasting. YouTube is not going to make me a lot of money, even if I had thousands of subscribers, because the money you get is so little. But podcasting is a better place to start making money. You can monetize your podcast much earlier than YouTube ever do. But then even so, there are affiliate marketing things that you could do to help with the income. So there's lots of different things I could do to create an income. And that's what I've been finding, and that's what I'm exploring and trying to figure out what is the most important and best one to focus on first until I've got it right, and then move on to the next thing. And that is the power of a compelling why. It can compel you forward in the direction you need to go, affects your choices. So I'm going to ask you a question now. What is your why? Again, what is your why? How big is it? How compelling is it? Has it been, if you have one, has it been strong enough and enduring enough to be able to keep you going in that direction no matter what's come at you? That's what I'd like you to take from that. Wow. To think about it. There's a lot of editing going to happen here, so you might not get this video until the following week. I'm so sorry. Or the podcast. You might not get this podcast till the following week. Oh, wow. Yeah. Your why is, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have obstacles. It doesn't mean that suddenly everything's going to fall into place, but it is the foundation of your motives and your reasons, and it does affect the choices you make to help you move in the direction you need to because of your why. So that is the power of a big why. Did I tell you? I can't remember. 2 weeks, is it 2 weeks ago now? Time goes so fast I lose track. I'm sure it's 2 weeks ago. I had got my book. Yes, I did, because I did a video on my YouTube channel. So I don't know if I wouldn't have mentioned it in the last podcast because that was before the event. So on my YouTube channel, I made a little video saying that I'd lost my prepared manuscript ready for publishing and I had to start all over again. So I've done that. I've made a start and now I have to do it again. But on top of the why, recognizing all the obstacles that we've had in the way, there's a permaculture principle that says that the problem is the solution. So if I keep getting obstacles and I keep getting setbacks, there must be a reason for it, that it may be my work is not ready yet. I need to change it. There's something that I need to change. And I felt that there is something I need to change in my book. So I've just got to go over it again and wait for inspiration. I usually try to, whatever I'm doing, I ask Heavenly Father for help, for inspiration. I am a Christian. I'm a spiritual person. And I do believe in personal revelation and guidance. I do also believe that we are left to make our own choices because they're not always all eternal They don't all have eternal consequences, but they're for now. And sometimes it just doesn't matter. You make your choice and you learn by it. So I still like to try and go with inspiration. So if I'm editing in my book, I try to, as I'm reading, I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying spiritually connected to what I'm writing and see if it feels right. That could take a long time, and it has taken a long time to get to where I'm at, but it won't be much longer because I am almost there. So bear with me. I'll let you know as soon as it's ready a second time, and this time I do have an external storage device to save my files, so I'm not going to be losing that ever again. Right, so I think for now that's what I want to leave you with, is the why, the importance and the power of a compelling why, and the fact that obstacles are opportunities. They're opportunities to rethink, to do better, to even to recognize where you've got to be a milestone for you to recognize, okay, this feels like an eternal goal that I'm just not getting anywhere. But if you stop because there's an obstacle, you're forced to step back a little, take a look back, take a look forward, take a look around and see what needs to be done. So obstacles are also opportunities. I hope you take that from this month's podcast. It is the Self-Reliance Week on my YouTube channel, and so it's appropriate to be sharing this as a video podcast as well. If you have any questions, suggestions, please just let me know. I am not sure how to do that on podcasts. Yes, that is still such a new thing. I have only just started listening to podcasts, okay? Podcasts have been around for years. I've only just started listening to a few, and I really like, there's some I really like, and others, you know, we'll get there. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Until next time, we're going to continue with a few of the self-reliance themes that have led to the birth of the Council House Homestead, as was my previous episode. So this episode being the big why, and next episode, I'll let you know as soon as it's up. Take care until then, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye, folks.